Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Wynonna Earp as well as the latest episode of Outcast. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Wynonna Earp, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Outcast. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Wynonna Earp. A lot to went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. This whole Jolene situation was very interesting because I was like, okay, so now we're cutting back to tying up your mom. It's like, okay, so it seems like Jolene's little charm thing, we still don't really 100% understand it, but I guess it's just the aspect of like, well, all demons have their own special abilities. So in her case, it seems like she can charm you, but it seems like she has to use it. I'm wondering, I guess it was real food, but I'm wondering what she put in it. Like, what's the special ingredient in this food that made people under her spell? Because it did seem like it doesn't last forever, but it lasts long enough for you to kind of shove food in someone else's mouth and make them go, okay, so, it's you, Jolene. Of course, I remember you, Joan. And it's so interesting because I love what they did with this episode because it's kind of interesting because it kind of reminds me of that demon from last season where Doc and Wynonna were in the house together on the homestead and they were kind of arguing back and forth. It was kind of feeding the anger. It's kind of like that to a certain degree, but this one, Jolene can like basically alter how you feel. Like she kind of like her anger, it seems like she almost transferred it, like the point where like Nicole was like, oh, those Earp bitches, and she was like, why did I say that? Then there's a moment like Wynonna like snapped at Waverly and it's like, oh, my half sister's like, why did I say something so mean? I thought that was so fascinating because it's like, it's hard to say whether Jolene was implanting her own feelings upon them, which I think is kind of is because it seems like that's what this is all about. Basically, Jolene has been around Waverly since she was a baby, and that's what Michelle has been all worried about. It's kind of interesting, too, that I love the little setup that Jolene does, because she's twisting everybody's memories, including Michelle. I thought we were going to go the entire time Michelle locked, like, tied up and stuff like that, like, knowing the truth, but it's like, no, she got swept up in all of this, too, which was very interesting, but the fact is that, it made it seem like the demon from, the Ghost River Triangle facility was like the demon that she's been worried about. Like I said, altering your memories and how you feel and how you think. And I thought that was interesting. And just using the little things. I wonder, how does she know what she knows? I guess because I'm trying to think in retrospect, like, was she hanging out with Doc after she went to visit her mom? I don't remember. I'm blanking on that. I feel like that might have been afterward. It might have been before. I don't know. Because, like, for it to know all the things that it knows, I mean, I guess Jolene, like, once, we never actually saw them tell these secrets. Like, the fact is that, Doc was married, or the fact is the whole, like, oh, Waverly didn't tell Nicole. So it must be on some level when you get swayed under her spell, she learns everything she needs to know about you. Because even what she was fixing for Nicole, it's like, oh my God, you know me so well because you know this is what I like. So it's like, it seems like that kind of played an element too. But I thought that was so interesting, like turning these little things against everybody, using, and once again, kind of like the secrets that each of them is kind of kept from each other, kind of manipulating certain situations, kind of being like, oh wait, Waverly knew about the Doc situation but didn't tell me. But it's like, I thought that was Doc's right to tell you. It's like, oh, Waverly didn't contact me first. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I was like, what is this all about? And then it turned out, it's like, oh, this is all about Waverly because this thing hates her. I was like, but why? Why does it hate her so much? And then at the same time, because she's like, oh, you took everything from me. I'm like, what's that about? And then it was so interesting because it's like, oh, it's kind of interesting because now it claims that Waverly took everything from her. So it's like now she's doing the same thing. You could tell because it's like, oh, it tried to make moves on Nicole, but Nicole wasn't having it. But like I said, it was that aspect of too that on some level they could fight it to a certain extent because the moment like Nicole had said what she said, like she snapped out of it a little bit. She's like, why did I say that? The same thing for Wynonna. So it's like the spell wasn't fully intact, and I thought was kind of interesting. I guess that shows you because their bond is so strong, like it could fight the food a little bit. Because even like using like Doc's insecurities, like the whole Hill secret is like, how do you know that other than the fact is you must have gotten this out of everybody's head at the time? But I thought that was so interesting. But then like to find out what Jolene's whole situation was, I thought that was a real kick in the teeth because it turns out Obviously, her dad isn't human. His name was Julian, and it turns out when, like, basically Waverly and Jolene are twins that basically were born on the same day, but basically Waverly took all the good, whereas Jolene kind of represented all the evil. They were kind of two sides of the same coin. So that's why she's been with Waverly ever since she was born, because they were born at the same time. And that's why she hates Waverly so much, because it's like, when you had so much free will, you had so many people love you. I was kind of cast and pushed away, like, you know, because she was the monster, she was the demon, which also, it seems like, you know, Waverly's not 100% human. Now, that's what I'm wondering about, too, those two aspects. Is that why the demon last season, when she got possessed at the end of season 1, but Amichin, isn't that what they were called? The thing that possessed her last season? Like, the fact of the matter is, Waverly was the only one who could fight it. Like, it dived deep into it. Took like over Wynonna, but Waverly kind of fought it to a good extent, and even it was talking about that. So it's like, two. Is that the two things I'm wondering is it because of what Waverly represent, because she was all good, that good was overpowering the Michin, or was it the fact is that she wasn't 100% human? Because in fact, I mean, I guess maybe that's why Wynonna was able to fight it a little bit too, because of the Earp blood, I assume. I mean, I guess being an Earp doesn't necessarily prevent you from being affected. I mean, Peacemaker tended to kind of work in that regard, but I thought it's just kind of I'm curious, like, is it one or both of those aspects that led to that? But it's like, oh man, that's what this was all about, why you hated her so much. And it's like, oh, I don't agree with it, but I mean, you understand on some level what that's about. It's like, I've had to live in the shadows while you got to live in the light. That's why I've hated you. And like, we finally understand how this all came to be. Like, the whole thing all those years ago wasn't her trying to kill Waverly. She was trying to exorcise this demon, but a fire started, and that's kind of how everything kind of fell down. But it got bound to her, and the moment Waverly touched her, it went back to her. So because they are on two sides of the same coin, like, I guess the moment they touched, like, that signal, that connection between both of them hit off. Because I was wondering, I was like, the moment she was like, oh, like, you kill, like, we're bound together, I was like, but won't killing herself kill you? But I guess it's like, maybe for her it's better that way, because it's like, now I've taken everything away from you, just end it all, so now I can be free from everything. But it turns out, I guess if Waverly killed herself, it cut those ties. But I guess if Jolene died, it, you know, I don't know. Like, I'm assuming it seemed like it might more so would have been a free thing. Because it's interesting because Kate, Contessa, had talked about the fact is like, oh, you owe fealty. And I'm like, who to who? Bullshar. And so he ends up coming after her at the end of the episode because, and it turns out the whole moving tree thing, that's 100% Bullshar, apparently. I mean, that tree thing last episode might have been something else entirely, but the way the tree comes and wraps around her like that, not unless that's something that, I mean, to be fair, we do know that all demons have their own special thing, like Bobo and his whole thing about, you know, being able to, like, go all Magneto and control metals like that and stuff. Well, metal telekinesis, I guess, would be the appropriate wording for his ability. So maybe that's what Bullshards is whatever it is with these vines and stuff like that, or trees. So maybe that's what that was too. But like, why grab Robin last episode? Are these plants popping up? Well, because that vampire, it did seem like a seed was put in that vampire's mouth from like the first episode. So maybe, I mean, you know, our first episode this season. So maybe that plays a part in it. Maybe he does kind of have some like growth ability, like trees in nature, like wood is kind of like his ability. Maybe he controls all wood and plant life type of thing, which is interesting considering him being the bad guy. It's just kind of interesting that he controls something that, you know, kind of coincides with life. Maybe there's some kind of like irony behind him having that ability. I don't know. We'll kind of have to fully explore that. It was kind of interesting that, like, you know, Peacemaker didn't kill her, but then I was like, all right, because Wynonna didn't do a headshot. It was just in Jolene's stomach. But even the fact that the question I'm curious at the end of it all was like, when Jolene was free, like, because she's like, oh no, I'm your friend. Like, was that a last attempt to try and sway her, or was it because Jolene was like, no. With Waverly gone, I can finally take my place in the light. We can be friends. We can be family. Hence why she went after Nicole. It wasn't just about stripping her away, like, because Jolene wanted to have everything that Waverly had, all the friends, the family, the love, you know. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But it seems like for so long she dodged her fealty to Bullshark because she didn't know he was back after all this time. I mean, it made sense because she was locked up. But I guess she wasn't there. I guess Wynonna never really said that Bullshark was back, did she? like when she went to visit her mom, like earlier at the beginning of the season. I don't remember if she expressly talked, like she wanted to ask about Bullshark, but I don't remember if she expressly said it or not. But nevertheless, I wonder will we see her kind of pop back up, or is she gone forever? Like her debt was owed, like Kate kind of said, like she would kind of have to pay for it. But like Jolene being who she is, kind of being an asshole, trying to spark everything. I do love like the brawl that spalled out in Shorty. Like I said, all those things kind of coming together, all the things she kind of set, all the dominoes falling. It's even interesting because I feel like we got to see a very interesting side of Michelle. Like you can definitely see like she's a lot like Wynonna, because it's like when she got drinking and stuff like that, kind of speaking her mind and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, like not afraid to punch someone in the face. It's like, oh yeah, you definitely see which parent Wynonna takes after. And it was just kind of interesting seeing that comparison, because like their mom has kind of been very meek, before now. Well, I mean, she's had her moments, but I think it was just because obviously she's dealing with the whole demon thing, so it seemed like she was going a little crazy. I mean, she's had this thing with her for years, kind of driving her a little insane and stuff like that. So what was also interesting about this episode was Bullshar's ring. It came back to Nicole, because that's something I forgot to talk about last episode, because that's what I was wondering, is that why all that weird stuff was happening last episode, was because she threw the ring? That's what I was kind of chalking it up to. But it's like, no, like it came back to her and it burned Jolene, which is like, all demons and stuff are seeming like they're either you fall in line and serve him. But I guess Jolene's thing was a little different, like whatever her deal was. Like I don't understand 100% like what her situation was, but for the ring to burn her like that, is it because it's just concentrated power? Is it because she owes a debt to him and anything that belongs to him burns her? Like, what that is. But the fact of the matter is the ring kept coming back to Nicole. Says a lot. Like obviously we know she's a survivor of one of the previous massacres, but it's like she definitely is neck deep in all this in some shape or form. For it to come back to her, like the fact that she held onto it without really telling anybody about it, must mean like there was something there. Like there was probably something that told her to hold on to it, whether she really realized it or not, why she didn't share it with anybody. Maybe not. There's definitely a connection between her and Bullshark. The fact is that she survived might be something to that, but we'll see. I thought it was kind of incredible because Doc at the end puts the ring on, because he had went to go see Bobo, because Bobo had talked about the fact is that the ring, is what he needs. What it'll do for him exactly, maybe it'll kind of solidify his powers, give him like full control of his abilities again, whatever the case may be. And in return, Bobo wanted to talk to Waverly, which I still don't 100% get why. And I guess this also does clarify what he was talking about before, like, because last season it was almost seeming like he was implying that he was Waverly's dad, but it turns out not to be the case. That's why he was talking about we're kin, in the sense of like, okay, so because they're both, like, she's part demon, so it's, him, so. But like, why Waverly? Because we know the reason why he's so obsessed with Waverly last season is because, like, oh yeah, because of what Wynonna said, like, during her vision quest that affected things, but maybe it's also about her dad, Julian, like, what that's all about, too. That's going to be a big mystery this season, finding out what his whole deal is. I mean, obviously, let's not forget, Waverly was born after the whole Willow and Wynonna, so it's like, yeah, that affair happened while she was still... I mean, now we kind of even know more so, like... That's probably double reason why, like, their dad, Ward, was kind of a dick towards Waverly, not really giving her the attention, because for one, she's not really in her Earp. She's, like, a reminder of the fact is that Michelle had an affair, plus knowing that she's probably not 100% human. I don't know. Because it always, once again, I've talked about it before, like, Waverly always kind of makes it seem like her dad never really paid her any attention. It's like, that's why she always kind of had to be perfect, just because she wanted people to notice her, But getting back to what I was talking about earlier, the fact is that Doc was like, yeah, I'm going to let you know, Bullshark, you can come, you want this, you can come get it. Because I know my fate is to go to hell, and when I do, I'm going to drag you down with me. I'm like, oh, that's so good. Putting it on his finger, too, and it's like, I wonder will that have any effects on Doc. I think before, maybe there was some part of him that was hoping that it could give him leverage to kind of get what it... I thought he was kind of implying that he was going to do what Bobo did. So, which does beg the question, like, the person he saw last episode, was that really Bullshar, or was it just like the staircase where there, like, was it a manifestation of something real? Like, what was going on with the woods? Like I said, maybe that's part of Bullshar's power, or maybe it's just the fact that the ring was there, but then it was like it ends up back in Nicole's hands. So I guess the fact is Doc's wearing it now must mean that it won't just pop back off and go back to Nicole, but Nicole's probably like the true bearer of it. So probably when it goes off Doc's hand, it will come back to her in some shape or form. Like I said, neck deep in all this. So complications all around with this situation, because I also love too that the fact is Nedley kind of got in the middle of this. I was like, oh man, did he eat the sweets and stuff like that? But he hadn't eaten them yet. I was like, because the question he's answering is like, oh, they think he's just a little crazy. Like, oh, thanks, Michelle's a little crazy, thinking that her and Wynonna got super drunk, and before he's about to eat anything, they're like, stop, don't eat those. And he just kind of like, okay, wait, what? Also, I do like that good conversation. Like, obviously, Michelle is now finding out about her having a granddaughter. And it's like, obviously, Wynonna and Michelle, like, being in that awkward, that sad situation of, like, sending their own, like, being away, making these hard choices as mothers, And I love, like, Michelle being like, oh, yeah, could you think about us, like, at some, like, play or something, like hooting and hollering, getting a little drunk and stuff, like them being there to support, Alice in what she's doing. So I thought it was kind of a cute thing, but also bridging some of the gap between Wynonna and, Michelle, because she spent so long hating her mom. Now she understands. Now Waverly understands too. So it leaves room to heal, because even Michelle, blames herself because it's like she left them with Ward, but for her, she thought she was protecting, because if she stayed away, she could make sure that Waverly stayed alive, and she knows that's kind of a great burden she put on Wynonna, but she felt like that was the only choice she had. Try to keep her daughters as far away from this situation as possible, Which is interesting too when you actually break it down. I mean, maybe demons aren't bound to it like revenants, because she did think she was a revenant, so. Because I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, because she crossed the Ghost River Triangle. So it's like, yeah, because they're not bound by the same laws as revenants are. So I'm forgetting that. They're attracted to Purgatory in the Ghost River Triangle, but that doesn't mean they're bound to it like that. Because I was like, yeah, because she crossed it at the end of last season. So, but definitely some very interesting developments this episode. Obviously, like, we're leaving this. Like, obviously, there's still that awkwardness in the air because everyone's kind of, manipulation and being manipulated, and dirty laundry is out there. So there's the whole Doc and Wynonna and Kate situation. So how that turns out, it's definitely going to be interesting. Also, where Doc and Michelle stand, because she liked him at first, but then it's kind of like, oh, now I find out about you being married and that whole thing. So we'll see how that all plays out. And now moving on to this week's episode of Outcast. A lot of stuff to break down about this week's episode. So obviously one side of things, you had the whole Megan situation, which I thought was kind of a bombshell aspect to it, of like her being like, oh yeah, Kyle, so I can't be around you. He's like, wait, what? The fact is she thinks he's crazy. Because once again, I kept bouncing back and forth. I'm like, does she believe? Does she not? Like, she has the memories and the flashes, but she's not really, you don't want to believe. Of course you're not going to believe. You're like, oh, there was something there was part of her that was slightly believing him, but now, like, the fact is she heard from Holly that she heard from Amber. The fact is that they have some powers. If anything happens, like, that's what really sets it all off, because probably Amber telling her about what happened to her mom was kind of, dim and stuff like that. Maybe that's why she was telling Amber, is like, what happened to my mom and my dad is like your fault. It's because of you. So maybe that's why, because Amber had, or at very least, maybe at that time, or maybe at some point earlier, Amber had told her about, like, hey, like, me and my dad can protect your mom, make it so that nothing like this ever happens again, that the thing never possesses her again. But that's why Megan's, like, reluctant to be around Kyle, is because for her, it's like, I will always love you, you've always been there for me, but the fact of the matter is, for us to move past this, I need to get away from you because you're crazy. Because she's like, you don't actually believe that, and Kyle couldn't say anything, but it's like, how do you convince him? I was like, wow, I wasn't, because I didn't know where she fit in the whole scheme of that whole thing, like, where she sat. And the whole thing about her parents. And I think it was nice, too, because, like, it was a hard but other powerful moment was the whole confrontation of her parents, because it's like, oh, you're going to live here. And she's like, oh, Holly will live here, grow up here. It's like, really? You think I let her grow up in this house? The fact of the matter is, you guys want to, it's like, oh, yeah, like, it's our fault for letting you stray away from the church or something like that. She's like, wait, so you're going to both sit there and pretend what happened because of Donnie, what he did to her, like, was nothing. It's like, you can't tell me you didn't know. You heard it all. But what was your solution? Just going to church. So that's why she's kind of got her own problems with church and stuff too, I think. It's because of that aspect of it, just because her parents used it as an excuse. They knew what was going down under their own roof night after night, and they did absolutely nothing about it. Which is, once again, something we're bringing up. Like, still don't know where that whole Donnie situation stands, especially after the whole Mark lawsuit thing. Like, beyond that, we don't know where that stands. But we haven't seen it subsequently since last season, so... Other things going down this episode, obviously a lot of people around town are getting spooked because they're like, oh, there's got to be devil worshiping because of the whole Patricia situation. They're hearing rumors, they're hearing this and that, which Giles is trying to keep everybody calm. And it's kind of interesting because Rose is like, oh, let me step up, let me help out and everything, because it's like, okay, we know these people were possessed. They hung out with these people. They're pretty tight with these people. So we got to think maybe they're guilty by association. But Giles isn't down for that because he knows that's just going to start a witch hunt. If you start letting people know the truth and we start hunting down people like this, it's just going to spread panic and everyone's just going to go like, oh, we're going to, like I said, turn into a witch trial where it's like, oh, this person's obviously the evil person behind all this. He's trying to keep everything calm by being like, yeah, what happened to Patricia was just like a terrible tragedy. That's all it was. There was nothing satanic or demonic about it. But like I said, the whole town is on edge because of something so brutal. Because, I mean, over the course of this series so far, that's been the most brutal thing. I mean, I wonder, I assume because like there's warrants and stuff out for Aaron and stuff, so I'd assume it's public knowledge that was Aaron, but at no point did they ever really bring up the fact that Aaron was behind it, so I don't know if they know. It might be something only the police know, and they probably keep that detail close to their face. I'd assume like everyone knows, or maybe that's what incites it even more, because like all of a sudden her son did that to her. It's like there's got to be more to it, which there is. So Kyle's learning more about the situation with his dad. Even back then, I guess, because his dad tried to use it on the woman he was, trying to get information from, Helen, but it wouldn't come out. And that was the first time, because he's like, why couldn't I get it out of you? I guess because at that point it was so ingrained in him that it was, I mean, to be fair, the other one kind of did the same thing too. Like we saw, not last episode, but the episode before last, where it ended up like trying to go back in any hole it could find to get back inside of the dude. So the question then becomes like, so was it because it had been so long? But it seemed like also at the same time, it seems like this whole situation is constantly evolving. I guess given enough time, the things inside of them can fight back harder in some cases than they can others. So, but Helen was basically saying the merge can't be stopped at that point in time. Bit her own tongue off so she wouldn't be even tempted to talk. I also like what they did with the whole Allison situation. That clarified a couple things for me. The boy in particular, I was thinking about, like, I was like, oh, is he supposed to be like the leader or something? It's like, no, it was 100% like Sydney was eating, like, what I'm assuming is their soul or something. Because he even talks about the fact is Amber still got quite some left. But it's like, he's like, I don't get it. Why does Sydney get to keep his? Like, but he's like, oh, I could take yours. Or maybe he's implying like going after Amber since he kept bringing Amber up. But it's like, yeah, that boy is Sydney's food supply. They need one on an active basis. Because you don't really see that too much. But I guess maybe depending on how long they've been in the bodies and whether they've had constant food or not, because we haven't really seen them really like eat people. Like it came up a lot more in season 1, but we haven't really seen it too much in this season of them kind of like what, like I said, assuming it's life, it's either someone's life force or their soul, whatever the case may be. Maybe after you've been possessed, you don't have that much left, because even he's kind of like, oh, like he didn't talk about, oh, how full and bright Allison's was. It was just kind of like, oh, you still got some left. So it's like maybe when those things are in you by possessing you, they take a chunk of your soul with them. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing anyway, when you like obviously with like the Charlotte situation and Kyle's mom situation, like them kind of being the states that they're in, that catatonic state, then that must be like, there's still a piece that kind of gets ripped away or devoured when they first kind of possess you. Kind of what I'm chalking it up to, but still, like I said, there's a lot to this we still don't understand. There's the whole Aaron situation. Now they kind of already kind of made it seem like, okay, so he is training Aaron up, but it is the whole situation of unity is what this is all about for Sydney. Like, because it's like, oh yeah, make Aaron into the perfect person he needs to be, train him up so that when he does become possessed, he'll be kind of a force to be reckoned with. It's like the fact that, because the mayor is kind of like, oh, we're all the same in this situation, which Sydney's like, no, we're not. The fact of the matter is we come together in like, because obviously they're still a bit of who they were before, plus what they are, the things they are from the other world coming together to kind of be who they are. And the fact is that he's like, I'm kind of in a different league, because the mayor kind of references to him to being like, oh, like you want to think like you're one of God's favorite angels. So it's like, are they demons? And in this sense, I mean, it seemed like they kept throwing out the words like no, we're not really demons, but it's like, are they demons? And they are like, fallen angels that became demons. Is that what their whole deal is? Or at the very least is what Sydney wants? Like maybe he's one of the oldest ones and then eventually other demons sprout from it. Kind of like the show Supernatural, like where it's like Lucifer kind of gave birth to demons, him being a fallen angel that kind of span off. Like maybe that's kind of what the whole deal is. I don't know. All we know is that their world, and the way the mayor kind of explains it later on, is the fact is that their world is on fire and they're trying to rush out whatever way they can. So, which is also interesting too, because like the mayor tried to turn on Aaron, which begs the question, why? I guess it's because for him, it's like Aaron's too much of a loose end. And I thought it was kind of an interesting thing because Giles is like, because he's like, no, because I made a promise to protect this town and all those in it. So when Aaron did what he did to Patricia, it broke like what he believed in. And it's like, no, Owen made a promise. He's like, I am Owen. So it's like the situation of they still are who they were before, plus this thing. It's like I said, it is a merging of the two. So it's hard to say like whether or not that really is them anymore, whether it's just kind of like, oh, I'm this thing that absorbed all this person. I became this person, but it's like that person was a person beforehand and you're swallowing all that was them. But it's like, oh, we're coming together and being one. So it's like, we are still that person, but it's like, there's more to you than that. Like, see, it's a very complicated situation when you break it down like that. But for him, he wanted to remove Aaron from the picture because he knew this would complicate things more. Plus, it also seemed like it was kind of like a middle finger to Sydney because he didn't like the way Sydney was kind of operating, because Sydney's just thinking he's better than everyone. It's like, no, we're on the same level, but you think you're so much greater, so much grander. But what I thought was very fascinating too is we learned from Bob, obviously being tortured by Sydney and Aaron, is that we ended up finding out Helen was trying to like accelerate things, which I'm curious what's making Sydney decide how to try and like accelerate things, because I guess it's like things aren't happening fast enough, plus he has to worry about Kyle, plus his own condition. It's like we need to make this go through faster. So how was Helen planning on doing it? And it seems that Helen was planning on combining beacons, like doing something that can make them stronger, which also it's like, so that means Kyle's dad wasn't the only one even back then. Because it's interesting, like obviously I'm skipping around, but Giles gets possessed, right? And he had said like someone in that, it's like you didn't feel it, someone in that room, like someone boosted Kyle's abilities and he became a brighter beacon in that moment. And that's why Giles got possessed in front of everyone, because they, like whoever it was on the other side was like, oh, I gotta go now. It's kind of interesting too, because it turns out like what I thought before, like those who go back keep information. So that's probably why like that dude in particular who was locked up with Anderson, it seemed like he was kind of more coherent than most, but maybe that's just because the transition is slowly fading away in some regards. But it sounded like he knew about Anderson and Kyle, so it's like it had to be someone that they had sent back previously. So the only way they can pass on information is if they come back. If they never came back, in some regards, probably like Helen's situation, she probably died with hers inside of her, so it's probably like that's why Sydney doesn't know, because Helen never came back with the information she had about how to do that. So are there other people like Kyle? Is Kyle only one of many outcasts? But even then, amongst the many, there might not be that many. Or maybe it's just maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be people like Kyle. I assume it would have to be, but it's like all these other beacons together will grow stronger. So it seemed like she was doing that with other people. So it's like, or maybe there's something in certain people that when it mixes with what Kyle is, being the outcast, it creates a bigger beacon. Like there's many different people who it could have been. It's like, well, the wonder is like, well, you'd assume maybe I'm leaning maybe towards the lady that was there that Anderson went to visit from that Beacon Church. It's either her, maybe Megan. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, once again, they do always pick people close to him. They picked his mom, now they picked his sister, so it's kind of like makes you wonder about the whole situation. But we'll kind of have to see about. And they picked his wife, so there might be something to that, or not less they're referencing the. Well, they don't. Well, do they know about Amber? Well, because Sydney probably doesn't know about Amber because, like, no one has come, well, maybe no one has come back who was the one who was possessed at that time hasn't slipped back through to know. Like, because I don't think they know about Amber, do. Well, one of them does know about Amber, but probably, do they know about her ability? I don't know. I keep forgetting about that. I mean, they obviously have to because when her and Kyle went to go visit Allison, she held her hand out and they kind of just left her alone. So it's like, so is she not what makes like Kyle, like now that she's kind of awakened her abilities, like it's that in turn messing with Kyle and does Sydney just not know about that? Or like what, or is there legitimately someone else? It's very fascinating. I wasn't expecting that Giles situation to go down the way it did. I thought the whole point was like, I thought he was going to have an Anderson moment and go like, okay, this guy's possessed. Kyle come up and try to touch him. And it's like, oh, because he had panic before you assumed he was possessed, but then like Kyle would touch him and he wouldn't be possessed. And I thought like it all fall apart there. It's like, no, didn't see Giles getting possessed. Like the moment he started coughing, I was like, oh, I was like, did they poison him? I was like, nope, he's about to get possessed. It's like, ugh. And I like that people trying to stop him getting as well. Like, I mean, everyone's a little suspicious about the demon stuff anyway, especially after what Giles said about like, oh, he's telling you, he's a liar trying to tell you there's no demons. It's like, they are here, they're coming, and I will fight till my last breath, essentially, you know, so. That, and the way he fainted like that, probably going to spark that even more amongst people, so. What's crazy is the fact is that the whole Kyle thing on the bus with Giles, like the fact of the matter is he got stabbed in the stomach or gut, and the fact is like something was pulling him. Like, was that something else or someone else, or was it just a thing in him kind of like spazzing out like under the circumstances, because it was almost like flying away? Or maybe that's kind of representation of the fact is Kyle didn't know at the time, but maybe his powers were like pushing, like maybe he got a little more like telekinetic and he was or maybe like the essence of the Outcast was pushing him back. I don't know, it seemed more like he was being pulled rather than pushed, but nevertheless, flying to such heights, I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. What I didn't expect was Megan to be there. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. And she's seen firsthand him depossessing Giles. And I think the fall was, such a hard impact. He was already stabbed, and it made it so that it probably impaled him even deeper because he's bleeding even more than he was before. But it's like, that's crazy. And Megan's there. She's like, I'm so sorry for not believing you. I'm here. That's why part of me is like, it might be Megan, but I don't know. Who might be the one that kind of increased his beacon. And it's like, what does that mean going forward? Now that she's seen it with her own eyes, that this wasn't BS. What happened to her? Like Holly, kind of knows and stuff. Like obviously, and now she does. So what does that mean going forward? Was Allison going to do not Allison. Well, focus on Allison too, but what is Megan going to do with Holly? Like, will she move in with Kyle? Will she feel safer or what, Because, on some level, Kyle blamed himself anyway, because he's like, there's part of him is like, his sister thinking him is crazy, it's bad, but I think at the same time, he's kind of okay with her being far away, because maybe the further she's away from him, the less likely she's in danger, but the fact is, if she's away from him, he can't protect her, so there's that whole snafu, so. But it was just like crazy turn of events. Sydney, tired of the mayor's Owen's situation, and has Aaron kill him, which is crazy. I wonder why. I think I might have brought this up earlier. I don't remember if I said it or not. I don't think I did, but why did they leave Bob alive? I guess it's just because he could be useful in the future, because he has more. I mean, he knows more about the situation than anyone else. I was talking about it earlier, but I think I skipped over it. Was the whole fact is the lady that the beacon that Anderson went to, like the way they were responding and stuff like that. Part of me was like, are you guys possessed? It seemed like you might be, but part of me was wondering if it was going to be that whole thing, and it turns out it is the case. They are people that were saved by Kyle's dad. What's kind of incredible is like her in particular, she has a mark on her back, like a handprint, which is like, that's never happened with anyone else. With Kyle has it. In some cases he used his blood, but I guess it's like depending on how deep the possession is and how rough it is. But it's like, why did her particular possession leave a mark? Because no one else's has, but I guess it depends on maybe at that time Kyle's dad had gotten so much more powerful, so that the essential exorcism was so powerful it left a branding mark. So that's what that whole Beacon Church was about. So Now it makes even more sense if Megan gets mixed up in that, because it's like, yeah, dealing with the fact that she was possessed, out of anyone, they could help her on, deal with it. But I'm curious as to what they're potentially setting that up to be, especially because they are who they are. Kyle might have an army right now. Like, I don't know if that's what they're going to set that up to be, but it seems like potentially. I wonder what Bob was going to do, because he went to where Kyle's dad's place was. Like, Kyle had been rummaging through the place, and he was about to take it away. I wonder, was he going to take it somewhere secure so that Kyle could use it whenever he wanted to, potentially? Not unless that was a different house he was pulling. I felt like that was it, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just my imagination. Either way. But I brought it up was the whole Allison situation, because once again, Allison's kind of in that same mindset that Megan's in. It's like, oh, I'm crazy. I'm out of my mind. Like, this whole possession thing. Kyle's trying to convince me. It's like, no, it's not. Even her doctor, Dr. Claire, which we know, like, isn't that the same doctor that is definitely possessed? Is trying to make Allison doubt herself, because it's like, oh, she runs into the little boy and she's like, they'll get her too. So it's like, especially because her being who she is, like, they're going to be wanting her even more. So Allison's made the decision. She's like, no, I'm gonna get out of here, because it's like, yeah, that dude knows too much about my daughter. He knows some specifics about the situation that went down between her, Amber, and Kyle. And the fact of the matter is, the doctor tried to be like, oh, but are you so sure? You're so busy fighting those demons, or would it be the right thing? Like, maybe something will set you off and you'll hurt your child. I was thinking like Allison wasn't going to go back out. I was like, oh, she's going to stay, isn't she? But it's like, nope, she pops up later on with Amber. So it's like, no, she's going to do whatever she can to stay with her daughter, because she knows she's saying all the things she needs to say to be like, oh, I know, like, those are crazy thoughts I had before. Demons possessed me. No, that was just, I had a breakdown, essentially, so. I'm pretty sure the doctor is one, but maybe that's a different lady and I'm confusing her with someone else. But like I said, with everything that went down, this was a crazy, crazy episode. I'm very interested to see where like all of this takes us going forward. Like, what are they going to do exactly to boost Kyle's abilities to kind of enhance the possession, It's also interesting that you're willing to kill your own. The fact is, he did that, but I guess it's like you're impeding what we're doing. It's almost like you're against us, against me, because it does seem like Sydney's kind of got almost like this god complex in how he handles this whole situation, because he does feel like he is and thinks he is special, that he was chosen to do what he's doing. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully Kyle, I assume Kyle will come out of this okay, but like Allison and Amber, like I said, his forces are coming together. Giles is hopefully okay after this, but I'm so interested to see the town's reaction after everything. Like, obviously the mayor literally just got killed. Like, what's that going to turn into and stuff like that, People saw Kyle punch a few dudes that were kind of getting in the way. Like I said, the whole Beacon situation, I'm curious to see what that ends up turning out to be, And it was kind of interesting. The mayor the way he talked about it kind of made it seem like once again, what the Outcast is. I feel like they still haven't specified exactly what it is, but it almost seemed like he was implying like, we didn't mean to kick you out. Like, the fact of the matter is, it made things slower not having the Outcast, but the fact of the matter is they would still find a way to get to this world anyway, because their world is crumbling down and wasn't big enough to support them. It's like, this world isn't either. So it's like, well, what does that mean? I guess it means once you get possessed, those who weren't possessed get wiped out, kind of like a genocide of sort. It's kind of how I'm chalking up what he was potentially saying. But what I was getting at is, it does seem like he was implying that the Outcast, or people like Kyle, once again makes me think like it isn't just Kyle's family, that there is more to it. Like, there has to be like one of those things inside of someone in his family. Maybe it was his dad, or maybe his grandfather, whatever the case may be, and it is trickling down into bloodline. Like, once again, why would you call him an outcast, other than the fact is that he has to be one of those things, but something went wrong, or maybe something went right about them. I mean, why is it that he has the ability that maybe it's like, oh, like one of the things years ago possessed a preacher or a priest, someone with a little bit of oomph and power or something when it comes to something? I have no idea. Like I said, I'm so excited to see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love light to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.